Let's face it, remote teams are tough to manage. Whether you're working with people across time zones, dealing with endless email chains, or trying to decode what's really being said in a Slack message, effective communication can feel like a battle. But what if I told you that the real secret to managing a remote team doesn't lie in fancy tools or endless meetings? It's in something far more practical, and yes, a little controversial. Today, we're diving deep into pragmatic communication skills, skills that aren't just about talking. They're about knowing when to talk, how to listen, and why some of the most common communication rules we've been taught are flat out wrong. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll have real, actionable tools to transform the way you communicate with your remote team. And yes, it's going to change everything. Don't miss out. Keep watching. Number 1, undercover feedback, the silent power of listening. Have you ever found yourself stuck in an endless loop of feedback sessions that seem to go nowhere? Everyone's giving their 2 cents, but somehow the real issue never gets addressed. Well, here's the thing. What if I told you that sometimes the most powerful feedback isn't given at all? I know, it sounds strange. Feedback without actually giving feedback. Stick with me here, and I promise you'll start seeing your communication in a whole new light. You've been there, right? You're in a meeting, and it's feedback time. You expect solutions, insights, or maybe even a bit of advice. Instead, you get the same recycled points, nothing that really helps move the needle. We all crave that honest feedback, that valuable nugget that can help us grow. But here's the kicker. Sometimes it's not about talking, it's about listening. Yes, listening. I know it sounds like the soft skill you'd use at a yoga retreat or in therapy sessions, but it's actually a secret weapon in remote teams, and it's about time we put it to work. So, here's the deal. Undercover feedback is a quiet revolution. Imagine this. What if, instead of constantly asking for feedback, you took a step back and simply listened? Sounds passive, right? But in reality, this strategy is all about capturing the unspoken truths, the things that people aren't explicitly stating. I know it might sound a bit passive-aggressive, but hear me out. Sometimes the most powerful insights come not from what's said, but from what's not said. You pick up on body language, tone shifts, pauses in conversation, those little moments that slip through the cracks in a direct conversation but reveal so much. Let me tell you a story. A few months ago, I was part of a remote team working on a tight deadline. We were on a Zoom call, and the usual feedback loop began. Everyone was throwing in their thoughts, but it felt like we were all just circling around the same issues without making real progress. That's when I decided to test something. Instead of chiming in like I usually would, I stayed quiet. I observed. I paid attention to the little things, the way one team member hesitated before agreeing to a point, how another kept nodding but didn't actually say much, and the silence that followed certain suggestions. By the end of the meeting, I had a clearer picture of where the real tension lay, and it had nothing to do with the content of the feedback. It was about unspoken doubts and frustrations. When I shared those insights in the follow-up chat, the team felt understood, and we made real progress. It wasn't the feedback itself that made the difference. It was the act of truly listening. Now, this isn't about being silent for the sake of it. It's about creating the space for people to express themselves in their own time, in their own way. When you listen attentively, you give people the chance to reveal more than just surface-level opinions. It's empowering, not just for you as the listener, but for the team too. It tells them, I see you, I hear you, I'm not just waiting for my turn to speak. This kind of empathy breeds trust, and trust fuels open, honest communication. In the long run, this practice isn't just about gathering useful feedback. It's about reclaiming your space in a conversation. It's about saying, I don't need to dominate the dialogue to make my point. You're letting your presence be felt without having to say a word. This kind of listening is active and intentional. And here's the magic. It actually saves you time. By cutting down on unnecessary talking, you can get to the heart of the matter much faster. So, next time you're in a meeting, try this. Resist the urge to fill every silence. Listen carefully to what's not being said, and let those little moments of unspoken communication guide you. It's not just a strategy, it's a mindset shift. You'll find yourself not only learning more about your team, but also empowering them to communicate more authentically. And in doing so, you'll make yourself a better leader, a better teammate, and ultimately, a better communicator. Remember, the real power of feedback isn't in the words. It's in the silence, the moments between the words, and the ability to listen when everyone else is talking. Your space, your peace, and your dignity begin when you stop talking over others and start truly hearing them. Number 2. The directness dilemma. Honesty over harmony. Ever feel like you're holding back just to keep the peace? Maybe you don't want to rock the boat, avoid the awkwardness, or just keep things smooth. But let me ask you, how often does that keeping the peace approach actually solve the problem? Yes, I know, it sounds harsh, but sometimes avoiding conflict is actually making it worse. Now you might be thinking, wait, does this mean I have to be brutally honest all the time? Stick with me, because this might just change the way you approach communication. We've all been there, trying to sugarcoat things, hoping that by softening the blow, the issue will magically resolve itself. You know the type. The meetings where everyone is nodding along but secretly, nobody really agrees. The email responses that are so polite, they're practically non-committal. It's exhausting, isn't it? When you know something isn't working, but no one's saying it out loud. It's like everyone's waiting for someone else to be the one to speak up. And in the meantime, everything just stays stuck. Here's the thing. Honesty over harmony. I know, it sounds like the kind of advice you'd get from someone who's a little too blunt for their own good, but hear me out. The truth is, being overly focused on harmony can often lead to unspoken frustrations, which build up and eventually blow up in ways we could have avoided. Yes, it's uncomfortable to speak up and challenge the status quo, but being direct is an investment in real resolution. You see, when you're honest, you're not just addressing the immediate issue, you're creating the space for real growth, for deeper understanding, and for true collaboration. Let me paint a picture for you. A while ago, I was working on a team project with colleagues who were all great at what they did, but we hit a point where the direction we were going in just wasn't right. We were all avoiding the elephant in the room, too afraid to upset each other or make things awkward. I could feel the tension building every time we discussed our progress, but no one said anything. Finally, after one too many vague conversations, I decided to rip the Band-Aid off. I directly told the team that the approach we were taking wasn't going to get us where we needed to go, and that we had to rethink our strategy. Yes, there was a brief moment of discomfort, but guess what? The clarity that followed was incredible. We identified where things were falling apart and found a much better path forward. And here's the kicker: once the truth was out in the open, everyone felt relieved. We were finally aligned, and the project took off. Being honest didn't destroy the team, it actually strengthened us. Now I get it. Being direct doesn't always feel like the easiest or most comfortable thing. We worry about hurting feelings, creating tension, or looking like the bad guy. But here's the truth. Avoiding honesty can often create more harm in the long run. Think about it. If you're not speaking up, you're letting the real problem simmer under the surface. You're not helping the situation, you're enabling it to continue, and that's a disservice to everyone involved. So yes, it's about being direct, But it's not about being rude, it's about being real. It's about putting clarity and progress above playing it safe. This approach, though, isn't just about speaking up. It's about trusting yourself enough to say what you really think. It's about reclaiming your peace by knowing that avoiding conflict only delays the inevitable. When you're honest, you give others the opportunity to be honest too, and that creates a culture of open communication and respect. It's empowering, not just for you, but for the whole team. By being direct, you're creating a space where everyone's voice matters and where problems don't fester in silence. So, the next time you're faced with a situation where you're tempted to smooth things over, ask yourself, is this really helping? Or am I just delaying the discomfort that'll inevitably come up later? Remember, honesty over harmony doesn't mean being harsh. It means being brave enough to speak the truth and strong enough to handle the consequences. It's about taking the lead in conversations and creating an environment where clarity wins over confusion, progress over stagnation. Your truth, your voice, your peace, don't let anyone take that from you. Number 3, silent Slack, a no-message day. Imagine this, a full day of no Slack messages, no emails, no pinging notifications. You might be thinking, that sounds like a nightmare. How could we possibly survive without those constant updates and requests flying at us from all directions? But trust me on this, what if I told you that taking a no-message day could completely transform your work life? Stick with me, because I'm about to show you how silent Slack could be the most productive and peaceful day of your week. You know the type. You wake up, you check your phone, and immediately you're hit with a barrage of messages, project updates, quick questions, requests, and the endless chatter that seems to never stop. We've all been there, right? It feels like you're constantly juggling between tasks, trying to respond to everyone, and before you know it, the day's over, and you've barely made a dent in the real work. It's exhausting, and the cycle never seems to break. The noise, the constant need to be available, it's overwhelming. So here's the thing. What if you took a step back? What if, for one day, you just hit pause on all those messages? I'm talking about a silent Slack day, a day where you simply don't reply or send any messages unless it's absolutely necessary. I know, it sounds a bit radical, but hear me out. What's happening here is not just about ignoring people, it's about reclaiming your space and protecting your focus. The magic comes from the simple act of creating a little distance from all that digital noise. By choosing silence for one day, you can create an environment where you focus on what really matters and find the headspace you need to do your best work. Trust me, this is not passive-aggressive, it's a strategy. Let me tell you how it worked for me. A few weeks ago, I was completely burned out. I was trying to manage a few projects and keep up with the constant flow of Slack messages. I found myself answering questions I didn't need to answer immediately, jumping into conversations that didn't matter to my priorities, and feeling like I was always on call. So I decided to experiment. I scheduled a no-message day. The first hour felt weird. I kept catching myself thinking, I should check messages, but I resisted. By the middle of the day, I realized how much quieter my mind had become. I could finally focus on tasks that required my full attention. I had the time to think, to plan, to create without being interrupted by the usual notifications. By the end of the day, I felt more accomplished than I had in weeks. The world didn't collapse without me responding to every message in real time. In fact, I was more productive and less stressed. This isn't just about being antisocial or avoiding responsibility. It's about creating the kind of environment that allows you to thrive. It's about recognizing that constant messaging and the pressure to be always on doesn't lead to better work. It leads to burnout. When you allow yourself a break from all those digital distractions, you're giving yourself the space to think clearly, tackle your most important tasks, and actually feel like you're moving forward in a meaningful way. It's an emotional game changer. It's about respecting your own time and your own boundaries. You're telling yourself, my peace is just as important as responding to everyone else's requests. So, here's the empowering part. You deserve that space. You deserve time where you're not constantly responding to the demands of others. The more you embrace these silent days, the more you realize you don't have to live in the rush of constant communication. You don't have to over-explain yourself. You don't have to back down from the expectation that you need to be available 24/7. Instead, you choose to own your time, your space, and your peace. Next time you're feeling overwhelmed by the digital noise, consider taking a silent Slack day. Give yourself the gift of peace and focus. It's not just about avoiding messages, it's about choosing what you give your energy to. Your time is valuable, and you don't need to be at the mercy of constant messages. Protect your peace, reclaim your time, and take control of your own productivity. You'll be amazed at how much more you can get done when you stop worrying about every ping and focus on what actually matters. Your space, your peace, your dignity. Take it back. Number 4, the 5-minute rule, cutting the fluff. Ever feel like you're stuck in endless meetings or long-winded emails, getting lost in the sea of words that don't really move things forward? The kind where you're waiting for that one key point, but it never comes. Well, what if I told you that there's a simple hack to cut through all the fluff and get straight to the point? What if you could get the most out of any conversation or task in just 5 minutes? Yes, trust me on this one. The 5-minute rule is about to change the way you work, and it's not as impossible as it sounds. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. 5 minutes? Really? How can anything important happen in 5 minutes? Well, think about it. How many times have you sat in a meeting that could have been wrapped up in a fraction of the time, or spent hours composing an email that could have been a quick, direct response? We've all been there, right? The meeting that drones on, the endless back and forth, and in the end, you're left wondering what was actually accomplished. It's a time suck, and it's easy to get frustrated when you know your time could have been spent doing something more productive. So here's where the magic happens, the 5-minute rule. The idea is simple. Whenever you're faced with something that could drag on longer than necessary, be it a meeting, an email, or a task, set a timer for 5 minutes. That's it. Focus on cutting out everything that isn't necessary. Get to the point, ask the key question, or state the most important fact. The psychological trick here is that the pressure of a timer forces clarity. It's not about rushing through things, but about recognizing that most conversations, decisions, and actions can be much more concise and effective than we think. Trust me, you'll be amazed at how much you can accomplish when you cut the fluff. Let me give you an example from my own life. I was in this meeting not too long ago, a brainstorming session. You know the type. Everyone was trying to toss around ideas, but somehow we kept going in circles. An hour passed, and we hadn't made any real decisions. I could feel the frustration building up, and I was just about to throw in the towel when I remembered the 5-minute rule. So I asked everyone to take a 5-minute break and, during that break, to come up with their top 3 ideas. No explanations, no fluff, just the ideas. When we reconvened, we spent the next 5 minutes only discussing the best ones. The whole thing was done in 30 minutes. We went from stuck to productive in less than half the time. It was eye-opening. The emotional benefit of this approach is huge. It's like taking back control of your time. Think about it. How many times have you sat through something feeling like you're wasting your day? With the 5-minute rule, you reclaim your space and your productivity. You stop over-explaining, stop getting bogged down in unnecessary details, and start getting to what really matters. This is about owning your time, your priorities, and your energy. So, The next time you find yourself in a long-winded email chain, or you're about to step into a meeting that you know could be a lot more efficient, remember the 5-minute rule. Challenge yourself to strip away the excess and get straight to the heart of the matter. It's about cutting through the noise and focusing on the essential. By doing this, you'll not only save time, you'll make your work more impactful and your day more satisfying. Your time, your peace, your productivity. Make it count. Number 5, the empathy overload. Put yourself in their shoes. Ever feel like you're doing everything right in a conversation, being understanding, listening intently, nodding along, and still, somehow, things just don't click? It's like you're trying to put yourself in their shoes, but the shoes are so uncomfortable, they don't fit. What if I told you that there's more to empathy than just putting yourself in someone else's shoes? What if the trick is about knowing when to step back from those shoes and let the person walk their own path? Yes, trust me on this. Sometimes empathy is about letting go. Now you might be thinking, but isn't empathy all about being there for others? Absolutely. We've all been there. A friend or colleague shares their struggle, and we jump right into fix-it mode, offering advice, making them feel understood, even getting emotionally invested. But here's the thing, sometimes that's the problem. We get so wrapped up in feeling what they feel that we end up overwhelming them with our own emotions. You know the type of situation, when you try to console someone, but end up making them feel like they're supposed to snap out of it just because you understand. The line between empathy and overload can be surprisingly thin. So here's the twist. Empathy doesn't always mean carrying someone else's emotional weight. Sometimes it's about simply holding space for their emotions without letting them consume your own. It's about being there, yes, but also recognizing when to take a step back and give the person room to process on their own. Think of it this way. Real empathy is about offering the comfort of understanding without drowning in the discomfort of the situation. It's a delicate balance, but trust me, it's an absolute game changer. I'll tell you about a time when I learned this the hard way. I was talking to a close friend who was going through a tough breakup. I was so caught up in trying to be there for them that I started taking on all their pain. I was constantly texting them, calling them, offering advice, and constantly asking if they were okay. It felt right in the moment, but over time, they started pulling away. I didn't realize that what I was doing, in my attempt to help, was overwhelming them. They didn't need my extra emotional load. They needed space to heal. I had to learn that sometimes the most empathetic thing I could do was simply let them feel what they were feeling, without jumping in to fix it or carry it for them. It was a wake-up call that empathy, when overdone, can quickly morph into suffocation. Here's the kicker. This isn't just about them, it's about you too. By stepping back and allowing someone the space to process on their own, you're reclaiming your own emotional space. You're giving yourself the ability to maintain balance in your own life while still being supportive. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that you're not doing enough if you're not constantly involved in someone else's emotional journey. But what if your peace is part of the process too? This is about giving yourself permission to set healthy boundaries while still being kind and present for others. It's about finding a way to care without losing yourself in the process. The next time you're in one of these emotionally charged moments, remember this. Empathy isn't about carrying the weight for someone. It's about sharing in their experience, then giving them the space to work through it. And here's the best part. By practicing this kind of balanced empathy, you'll find that your relationships become deeper, your own emotional reserves stronger, and your ability to truly connect more genuine. You deserve to have your peace and your space just as much as the person you're supporting. Reclaim that space, protect your peace, and remember, empathy isn't about walking the entire distance with them. It's about helping them walk at their own pace. Your space, your peace, your balance. Keep it. Thank you so much for sticking with me until the end. I truly hope this video gave you some valuable insights into pragmatic communication skills for remote teams. If you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Your support means the world. And if you want to dive even deeper into topics like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content. If you know someone who could benefit from these tips, share the video with them. Let's spread the knowledge. And I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts or personal experiences. How do you navigate communication with your remote team? What challenges have you faced? Let's keep this conversation going. Remember, clear and intentional communication can transform the way you work with your team, and it all starts with the small steps you take today. Keep empowering your team, keep evolving, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.